Hello and welcome to UKVersus episode 6. With all our lovely blurred backgrounds, we're going to be going over pre-release prep for the upcoming Undaunted Raid pre-release. You've got Dabby Guy, Brett Pendragon, Shin Guy, Richard, and you've got Head Judge of EU, Mr. Murray.
Right.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. So, going straight into here, let's go talk to our resident judge. Let's talk. Tell us what is a pre-release and how it works, Mr. Head Judge.
So, pre-release in the most literal sense, it's an early chance to get your hands on the cards. Normally, these events take place a week before the actual set's release date, so it's a chance for the players in the community to come together, play in a mostly casual event with brand new cards that, unless you follow the previews, you've probably never seen before, and it's a chance to get some new rules interactions on the go.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, So it's a sealed environment. What is a sealed environment?
So when you sign up to your pre-release or at the start of your pre-release event, depending on how the store organises it, you'll get given a little box that's got six booster packs of the new set in it and one promo card. Out of these 6 packs, you will try and build a 40 card deck, ignoring symbol requirements, roughly made up of 26 foundations or 26 non-attack cards to 14 attack cards, and you can include your pre-release promo in.
Yeah, I forgot to have the pre-release promo ready on hand. That makes me sad.
But yeah, so obviously they've done things slightly differently for this set. So all the sets prior ones 4, you would have got 6 booster packs, and they would have had like a pool of characters that you can choose from once you've seen your pool, and you can sort of fight out over them and sort of play either characters from that set or any character, what have you. Obviously they're doing something different now with set 5 and probably going forward, in that obviously every pack has a character in it now.
Yeah, we've got the new rarity CH.
Yes. So in terms of building your deck, you have to use the 6 characters you open.
Yeah.
So any of those is viable, and obviously you can get XR characters and all that sort of stuff. So in theory, you could play Mirio, or if you have an XR Mirio in your packs. And yeah, so 40 cards is your minimum.
Yep.
I think
So I should clarify, it's 40 plus character.
Yeah.
So 41 is the true minimum. But
before we move on to go for that, I am a big fan of this change with the characters. In the set for pre-release, I looked at my characters and I just went, I don't like these characters. And I went up to the desk and I went, can I have a spinner? They went, yeah. Cool. And I had a spinner. I ended up taking 3rd because I literally just had the option of going, I don't want to play Dabby 2 or Shigaraki 3 and sealed. I'm just going to go get myself a spinner or a muscular.
So we should have the Dobbers should have a video coming out at some point talking more about the change and the impacts it actually has on sealed and draft, about not having this pool of characters sitting at the side that you can always rely on. So it'll be interesting to see how the data from sealed events actually reflects on it.
Yeah.
I am just hoping
it almost affects draft more, right? I mean, I've personally never drafted UKVersus. It's something I'd definitely like to give a try at one time, but just never had the opportunity to. Never had a large enough play group to draft it, to be honest.
Well, without a doubt, it affects draft more. It'd be.
Oh, I think. Is that me? That might be
me. Did you cut out there? Or was that me?
Looks like you froze a little bit.
Yeah, I think that was just a bit of a bad connection from my side.
So as I was saying, it was the equivalent of drafting something like Magic the Gathering, where each time you open a pack, you get this new card that tells you, oh, you can be white-red. You can only be white-red. And then the next pack you open, you're like, okay, now you've got the option of being white-red or black-red. So each time you open a new pack, you're getting this deeper into, okay, I get to pack 5 or 6, and I open a character that's really good, but I don't have enough time to modify my draft pool.
Yeah.
So it's at what point do you need to have?
Yeah, that's the difference between sealed play and draft play. In sealed play, you look at your pool and you go, okay, this is the best I've got here. And like you've seen, not to go too deep into Magic, but when I was still playing Magic, it was during the Return to Ravnica arc where you literally picked a guild and you got a box and you were guaranteed one booster pack that had support for your part of boost for your colours. I think we're having a bit of connection issues. I don't know what quite what's going on.
Yeah,
I think it's just like every so often. We'll try and put a power through. Hopefully, it won't be too much of an issue.
So Reaper626 in your chat has got a good point. Mr. Compress was a powerhouse in set 5 sealed, set 4 sealed.
I think that was a partial solution to the set 2 and set 3 issues with sealed. That people were having to go and pick characters. Like, okay, if we always give you at least a guaranteed character, then we don't have to rely too much on this, which is probably why set 4 we only had the set 4 we had set 3 they had paper characters, didn't they? And then we actually got proper cards.
Yeah.
But we know issue, Greg. Don't worry about that. But yeah,
it's quite interesting because you guys have never really had proper select format cards. You had the paper printout kind of equivalent that Jaskell sent out.
Yeah.
It would be full art normally, and on the front it would say select format only. In stores would be sent maybe 30 to 40 of these, I believe. Don't quote me exactly.
I think I missed out a little bit on the front there, but you're saying it's a full art card that had printed out on it that it was selected use only.
Yeah, so the back of the card would be full art, and the front of the card would say select format only. And this is the draft characters that the store would give out. We didn't have to fight over who gets the muscular for this event. We had these in abundance.
Okay, so, because that was I think a thing certainly for set 4 is that I think very quickly people cottoned on that if you can, you should probably just play muscular, right? He was just so much, I think, quite a lot better than everyone else. I think in set 3, Ojiro 2 was probably better than everything else. And so now you don't have that, you've just got your characters. So you're not having to kind of fight over who gets the 3 musculars in those kind of draft characters. Because I guess one of the differences, I don't think we mentioned this earlier, between, say, constructed and draft and sealed is the symbol chaining, right? So constructed, obviously, you've got hard symbol chaining. In draft, you've got the soft symbol chaining, so you can play any card that matches a single symbol from a character. And then in sealed, you can ignore symbols entirely. So it's always a case of you just pick whatever you think the best character is that is going to go with your cards, right?
That's it. It can lead to some. It can lead to some very interesting stuff. Yeah, muscular was a great one to go with. Dabby 2 was also a bit of a powerhouse if you could get a decent attack lineup going. But yes. Set 4 sealed was the first time I'd played pre-release, and the HLC was the first time I'd actually played actual sealed in this game, and it was really interesting to actually see how these cards that would never interact with each other in constructed interacted with each other in sealed. Be able to play Wild Pussycats in any deck. So having that access to mana ramp, to foundation ramping was really cool to have in symbols that in characters that don't usually have access to it.
Yeah,
it's one of the selling points I see. It's why I try to do it for each set that I can, just so you can explore that additional format.
Yeah, and sometimes you're almost forced to play with cards you wouldn't necessarily play with. So sometimes you'll play with a card that you've evaluated to sort of on its face as, this is all right, and then you play with it in sealed, and obviously you've got to take the sort of circumstance into account. But sometimes they can be a bit surprising and actually does more work than you thought it would do. Or sometimes there's a card you think, that looks busted, I'm going to play it, and then you play it in sealed, and it's like, this isn't even good here. So again, it's a good way of kind of getting a different look at cards, right?
Well, that's why some cards can be printed that you look at them and go, this is trash in competitive. I've never played this card in competitive, but in the limited format where you only have access to a certain amount of resources and attacks, this is a really good attack. And that's probably something we're going to come along with when we look at our picks as to what cards we're going to be looking out for. But it's just really interesting to me. And I love the fact they've taken no precautions other than pure odds to say that no one's going to open 6 Fat Gum 2s. And I mean, the odds are ridiculously thin, but it could still happen. And they've got no procedures in place if that happens.
I think in terms of like how print collation works and like the sheer odds, I think it's
like a one.
Never gonna happen.
They're saying it's like something like a 1 in 100 million chance of it happening, but I'm just like, there's still a chance, and if it does happen, I'm going to go with the "I told you so."
Yeah, it's never.
Let's get the coffee started because it keeps freezing.
Okay.
So hopefully that's going to be a bit easier. And I just noticed that you've got a very sus shirt on there, Mary. Yeah, my little boy's just got into it's Power Rangers one as well. My little boy's just got into Fall Guys, and I had to buy him a sus skin for it. Could possibly, if it keeps up, we'll take it off and see what happens. But okay, so we're going through the symbol chaining, we're going through the new character changes. Shall we just move straight into? Well, no. Before we go into the picks, let's go over what generically cards should we be looking for.
Yeah, and just sort of, I guess, general deck building concepts, right? Because it is a little bit different in construction. We talked about 41 being the minimum. I think quite often it will be correct to not play the minimum, and there's a very specific character that probably means that's the case, which I'll get to later as to why. But obviously, you do not have to play 41. So, for example, like, if you open a Dabby 2 in set 4, the correct thing was probably just to play every single
Yojo, the guy like self-milling.
Yeah,
you're not going to want to play the minimum.
And also, like, Night Eye, he exists in the format, but spoilers. So, in terms of, so you don't have to play anything. Obviously, if you've got cards that are just wildly unplayable with everything else, then sure. Buddy blocks are always quite good to put in, especially if you need to find some filler cards. Like, it's never a bad thing to have buddy blocks in your deck, because you've got those extra characters you can use. It was especially true sort of in set 4 again when you have all those twice cards. I was picking them up and stuff, but you should never feel bad for putting 1 or 2 body blocks in your deck. Having those 0 mid blocks is always useful. I think when you were saying 14 attacks in your 40 card pool, I slightly disagree. I generally would tend towards slightly higher ratio, towards sort of more 16, 17.
Yeah, during the set 4 pre-release, there were a lot of the people I was playing against were saying, I'm only going 14, 15 attacks. But they weren't seeing any attacks because they were 6-handers. Because set 4 had a lot of 6-handers that you weren't really going to play the 7-handers, which were quite squishy at pre-release. And I was there, I think I was rocking 17, 18 attacks on Spinner because I just get to build out. And I ended up getting to the finals against Muscular, which is it's a whole other story as to what the hell happened in the final game. But I felt that I was able to be more aggressive because I had those additional attacks. And it's all about working your ratios, making sure that you can pass those checks, not sometimes going above that 40 limit, going to 42 to justify those extra attacks. But my friend Kira, who taught me card games, who got me to stop being a casual player and start being more competitive, had a very simple rule for playing sealed play, and it was be aggressive. Just always be aggressive. And in this game, it's a little bit harder to get across because you've got the checks, so you can't just run pure attacks. But it's a case of if this foundation gives stats, if this attack gives stats, if your character gives stats, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for basically stat progression. You're looking for basically going, all my attacks have the potential to possibly kill you here.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Like, it's none of you are going to have a solid game plan, right? You're not going to have this cohesive deck that's drawing a million cards and is combo chaining loads of things and doing all that sort of stuff. Like, you're not likely to pull that off with a sealed, maybe even more likely in draft, because obviously you're picking your stuff, but you're not going to have these cohesive game plans that you do in constructive. So just pure stats and being aggressive and just getting your opponent dead becomes a lot more key than, say, trying to wall up or do sort of clever things, like just like chucking a bunch of damage and speed on and saying you got the block. And people's block zones are going to be out of whack. They're not going to have good blocks. They're not going to have all these things. They're not going to have all the breakers and stuff. So, you know, you want to sort of be chump checking your opponent almost every turn.
You want to be flexible on your defense. Because you don't, like you said, you don't know what's going to be coming, and your block zones aren't going to be the greatest. So the more mid blocks you can throw in there, the better. But you want to be you want to be the one providing pressure. You want to be the person that is doing the proactive plays rather than being the player who is reactive. In sealed play, I think once you start playing the reactive game, you don't have the same resources, you don't have the same tech as you do in constructive, and unless you've specifically pulled a pool of 6 packs that have given you reactive cards, such as the new shield and stuff like that you're able to manipulate, being proactive and putting the pressure on your opponent is always better in sealed.
Yeah.
While I agree that aggressive plays are the way to play in limited formats, I don't think aggression for the sake of aggression's the correct way to go. Don't get me wrong, it's definitely not as simple as one shoe fits all, and it's a case by case. I've drafted sets in the past where I've had 21 attacks and 18 foundations in my deck because that was just what was able to be done. Especially in sealed, like, I wouldn't hamper myself by playing attacks that are completely irrelevant or not doing anything at all for me.
No, it's not just about playing all attacks that you get. It's about going.
Yeah, it's about striking that balance. And as a general rule of thumb, like 1/3 of a UFS deck or 1/3 of my hero deck is attacks, which is where I get the number like 14 to 16 from.
Yeah,
it's also about understanding that cards that you would look at and write off, or you might have seen in content tier lists and people going, "Oh, this card sucks," as a constructed card, doesn't mean that it is a bad card in sealed. It's being able to get in that mentality of, I have this limited pool. How good is this in my pool?
Exactly, it's a completely different ballpark. For the most part, it may as well be 2 different games.
Yeah.
Like, the vanilla 4 mid for 4 that draws a card is going to be baller in sealed or draft. But it's not same playing standard.
No.
Anything that says draw a card in sealed pool is just great. You see more of your deck, you see more of what you've got, and that anything that says draw a card is great in any format. It's the 3 greatest words in any card game. Draw a card.
Yeah, exactly. Card draw, momentum outs, positive stats, negative stats. Like, they're the things you're sort of looking for, right? It was almost like a baseline, and then you know. I
do like that they've changed from booster boxes being handing out packs to the pre-release seal packs, because what if they're stuck with the booster packs? You're guaranteeing that 1 in every 4 people's got an SR, that which would have been mental.
See, I'm kind of the opposite with this. I liked having the guarantee that out of 4 people at a table, you're going to see like a decent amount of URs. Yeah. With it being the simple or the 6 packs in a kit, I feel like, not saying that Jaskell would tamper with the odds, but there's a definite reduced chance that you're going to end up with 2 URs in your sealed pool.
Yeah, exactly. You don't really know what the distribution's going to be like in those packs, right?
No.
You know, like, did your store get the pre-release kit that was all the bottom layer of boxes and didn't get any SRs and URs, and then some other store's pre-release kit is just UR SR central? Like, you just don't know. And
so Southampton that I went to, they opened the first pack box for set 4, and the box topper was an XR USS, which was just nuts. That big wave was like, yeah, it's first place prize. Like, boom. So I get but that's not an issue in this because box toppers are now gone, which I'm happy with. I'm not happy that boxes are the same price without stuff like that. But
I mean, I assume what they've done is they've effectively massaged it into the cards, right? So I presume where it was before, you would open 4 XRs in your boosters, and then you get your 5th one as your box topper. I would presume now you're just going to open 5 XRs in your packs.
But essentially, we are 5 cards down in each box because we're 3 cards down in each box because the quirk packs and the box topper have all been cycled back in.
But then you get an extra however many because you've got the characters, right?
True.
So it would be an extra 24 because the characters are there.
Yeah.
I kind of wish that XR characters would have just took the character slot, but we can deduce from the article they done about the changes to sealed and draft that XR characters count towards your normal 10 cards in the set.
I think the main issue doing it that way is you'd end up with packs that had an XR character, an XR card, and then a rare, ultra rare R.
Yeah, it will just be a collation thing and how they.
You'd end up with God packs going around, yeah.
I wouldn't mind seeing God packs come back.
So I mean that gives everyone a brief sort of run over of how a sealed thing works. Yes. Obviously, you build your deck, and effectively then the rest of your pool, anything you don't use is sideboard, so you can sideboard between games if you want. If there's cards you think, oh, maybe I need that in this, or this attack's not doing much here, and stuff like that. So your entire pool is open to you sort of between games, and obviously you could change your characters if you think a character's not doing very well.
So what we have done this week is. Mary was a little bit late to the party because we were already going for this when we came up with it. We have picked 1 character and then 5 commons or uncommons. We didn't want to go rares because they're not guaranteed to be seen, but the chances are in 6 packs you're going to see the majority of commons and uncommons. And we've picked cards that we think are highlights for sealed play that you should at least be considering, if not immediately playing, because of their utility. And then 1 character that we think is a pre-release highlight, a card that is going to be very powerful at pre-release.
So to slightly contradict you, that isn't how I approached it. I approached it just these are cards I wanted to talk about for various reasons, right? Not necessarily just because they're great. The reason obviously we've skipped the sort of rares and new Rs is that for the most part, all of the rares and URs you open, you're probably just going to put in your deck. They're almost certainly going to be more powerful than everything else that you've opened in your pool. And unless they're very narrow and they've got restrictive combo requirements, that sort of thing, you're almost certainly just going to play all of your rares and URs.
But there's no point us spending 10 minutes talking about a secret rare that you're probably not going to pull.
So we picked out some highlights that we're going to talk about. So
how did you approach selection, Mary? While I put yours up.
So I don't know if you're familiar, but with set 4, I did like a 30-minute long video, basically going over every card.
No, I'm not.
Okay. So we done like a 30-minute video going over for the purpose of sealed and draft. So these were the cards that I was looking at and intrigued me the most for sealed, at least. Not saying they're the best cards in the world, but I think they, for the most part, some of them have very nuanced interactions with a lot of the other cards in the set, and some might just be going completely undervalued, like Resigned here.
So let's start off with the characters, you suppose. I'm gonna butcher this, but it's Didoro Sakaki.
I think that sounds pretty good. Didoro Sakaki. I think that's how I pronounce it.
That sounds pretty good. So I'm just going to call him Upside Down Guy because I'm not butchering it.
Drunken Fist, as it was. So why did you select this character, and what do you think he brings to sealed play?
So the main reason I picked this character is I think he's a bit interesting that a lot of people are going to brush over because who wants to be giving their opponent momentum? And I just wanted to open people's eyes a little bit to some of the nuances with this character. mostly this his response is amazing.
Yeah.
In a sealed format, you're not guaranteed to open anything that will spend momentum yourself, which means that your opponent also has the same chance of not opening anything that spends momentum. And as long as you're
there's
not,
very few of them, I believe, at common and uncommon that actually have EX or powerful. Like, I think there is not many momentum outs at the common and uncommon rarity. So where like maybe you'd consider this guy in constructed, it's like everyone wants their momentum. Giving people free momentum sounds like a terrible idea in constructed. In limited, it's probably like a fairly minor thing. Like, it's obviously a thing and it is giving them a resource, but yeah, as you say, it's like it's probably not the downside that it is in the constructed.
And rechecking is not a bad thing. If my rival is 3 attacks deep, checking on a 7, they check a 5 and go, yeah, just recheck it. You may check another 5, you may check a 3, but it may help me end your turn.
that's exactly it. He's one of the few characters that has this response that's going to interact and doesn't have the clause of you can still continue playing your turn if you don't want to pass with that extra -1.
Yeah.
I'll just roll the dice on hopefully you flip a 3 or worse. As you were saying about momentum spenders, there is 13 things that spend momentum or use momentum in some way at common, uncommon and character. 2 of those are cards that go face up on momentum, and I believe there's about 83 cards when you add up the commons, uncommons and characters. So I'll take those odds that your card isn't going to, your deck's not going to have something that really cares.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And the enhance isn't too bad either. If the attack's blocked, your rival commits 1 foundation. So essentially, you can commit 4 things over the course of both turns, and it's also active speed hate and stats, which is what I was saying earlier. Giving stats on face is always good.
That's exactly it. Like, as soon as you should trigger this response, as soon as as soon as you're able to, so that you can facilitate this +2 or -2 speed twice per turn. And at that point, you turn into like a kind of cheekier version of Momo or a Razorhead, because you also get to you force your opponent to commit foundations on block. So yeah, I think he's overall pretty strong.
I think the main issue with him will be a skill issue, the same as Shigaraki 3 and things like that, where people don't know to make them recheck at the right time. So the same as like when a lot of Shigaraki 3 players will go, oh, I'll give you you've checked a 3, I'll give it -1. It's like, cool, you've just allowed me to not have to overcommit. It's one of the things that making sure your opponent rechecks the right thing at the right time, especially like you say, especially early on. If you're going second, the chances are during your opponent's build turn, you're making them recheck at least one of those foundations just to get your enhance online.
Yeah, I think early on we're just going to do it to get their first momentum, right? Just to get that speed online. But yeah, no, I'd certainly agree with the evaluation there. Like, yeah, in constructed, I still think he might be okay in constructed, but he just his downside becomes a lot less pronounced in limited. So yeah,
with the stipulation of how to get a box this season of playing a set 5 character, he is on my shortlist to test, because he's just an all-round good guy that gives speed. It seems decent, and he gives -speed. Like I say, he's a pseudo Momo, but that's a bit more controlling rather than aggressive. Let's move on to one of the attacks you picked up on, which is the Precision Seal Strike. 4 cost, 3 check, 1 low block, which is always decent, 3 mid-5. Enhance, your rival reveals the top 3 cards of the deck. You may discard any number of cards revealed this way. Return the rest in any order to the top. If your rival has 1 or more seal foundations, change this attack zone.
So right out the gate, we can ignore this bottom enhance. From what I could see, there's only 2 ways, I believe, to seal cards, and one of them's a character and the other one's deadlock.
Yeah.
This is a common, uncommon. But this top enhance, it's very reminiscent of an old Blanca attack from the Street Fighter 30 set, where you also get to see top 3 cards and do the exact same thing for the most part. This card has 2 functions that aren't really written on the card. It says, if you're attacking with it and you're planning to come in with a string or try to do some big damage, you're looking to stack freeze. You want to take all the foundations off the top of your opponent's deck and exclusively stack freeze.
Yeah.
Alternatively, if it's a poke turn and you know that you're only coming in with this attack, you want to look at the top 3 cards of the deck and scrap all the attacks and leave as many foundations or non-attack cards there as possible.
And you've not got Jiro to worry about, you've not got Destined for Mainstream Success to worry about, you've not got as much chivalrous or out of turn draw to worry about in the set.
Yep, it's exactly that. Slam and tech are semi-relevant keywords in the set.
There's
so
a lot
that's always a bonus.
Yeah,
there's Slam's the most predominant, I believe. I think I counted 10.
Yeah, there's when we were going over our Night Eye build, we saw there's a lot of Slam in this set. It's going to be definitely interesting. I know Andrew Holder's currently brewing away with a Selkie list on Water because of how many Slams have now been introduced.
Yeah, and like if nothing else, like it's a 5 damage move on 4, right? There's a nice high damage, sort of chump check attack.
Under Sakaki, it's a 5 mid 5 on a 4. It's a decent poke.
Yeah,
with an excellent block zone.
You say that, so this is something that I'll probably go into a bit more during my stuff and sort of why I pulled out some of those cards. But low blocks are not that valuable. There are, I think it was 4 low attacks.
You're correct. There's 4. I have notes sitting beside me.
We're going into this as a momentum out and a low attack. We've got the second attack you chose, Bad Guy Roundup. 4 cost, 3 check, 2 high block, 3 low for 4 with powerful 2 response. After you play this card, your rival discards 1 momentum. Excellent for Sakaki. Enhance, if you have 1 or more ready foundations, your rival draw a card.
Yeah, more ready foundations, your rival draw a card.
So I'll say right now that I kind of picked these cards just as these are the cards that I think might go overlooked for the most part. Not necessarily just for the character, because one will definitely come up that has nothing to do with him.
That's fair.
So I'll just future-proof myself just now.
I did something similar, so don't worry about it.
Bad Guy Roundup's a solid attack, right? It's one of the few low attacks at common and uncommon, so your opponent might not have been packing the low blocks looking for it. It comes innately with powerful 2, so you gain a momentum dump, which is a big thing to have in sealed or draft.
Yeah.
You always want to have a reason to take momentum, and just if you have no reason to take momentum, you're just kind of shooting yourself in the foot accidentally, I guess, because you're losing out in this part of the game. You should pretty much be guaranteed to always draw a card with this, unless you're throwing it quite late into your turn, or if your opponent just had a build turn. You should probably have more committed foundations than you do. So it's overall, man, it checks every box for me.
That's it, and
it's play your card. Does that work on defense?
After you play this card, so even on defense, it's a discard of momentum ability.
And again, like just to kill an opponent's momentum is always good, right?
Yeah,
because they might have a momentum dump. But yeah, like it's because everyone, a lot of people are going to be going into this knowing that there isn't many low attacks, right? They're just going to build with their low blocks. So having a low attack that's then chump checking them with that big powerful as well. Yeah, I think it's going to be
something you hear in Constructed a lot. Apart from 1.3 million, people don't die to low blocks. They get hurt by them, but low attacks don't kill people. And it's something that kind of like embedded itself into a lot of players' heads. You even said it yourself. There's not enough low attacks in this set for you to be worried about. So having this free low speed with powerful 2, if you can get this up and they have to partial block it, you can do some serious damage.
I think the lack of low attacks is something you see through most sets, and it's just kind of a holdover from the old fighting game days, because instinctively there's less low attacks in those games.
Okay.
I mean, I did build my RLE deck with pure lows just because people kept saying to me, I never died to low attacks. Like, cool, I'm going to build a deck with nothing but lows. Moving on to your foundations, let's start with one of my favourite cards from this set, which I've highlighted as potentially a problem with it can't be fixed. Facing Danger. 2 cost, 5 check, plus 3 mid block. Enhance. Destroy changes attacks damage to 5. And response flip. After this card is committed due to arrival effect, unflip one other foundation, playable while committed.
So this is the You're So Obvious that you've got at home, right? This is... It's going to be the commoner... Well, we don't call it commoner, I can't remember what we call it. Common ground. It's going to be the common ground equivalent. Attacks can get big out of nowhere, even like some simple attacks like rounding up bad guys. If your opponent's been sitting stockpiling momentum, that can get large. It's always worthwhile having a panic button or two. And yeah, there's some 20 health characters in the set, and 5 damage is still 5 damage, but if you need to pop this to take 3, 4, anything upwards worth of damage off an attack, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I'd say even for the throws, because I mean, there's throws out there. There's cards like Midoriya 4, which just give everything powerful. So, and not being sealed, symbol limited means that you can just chuck a lot of throws into Midoriya 4, and then you can just go, destroy, set damage to 4. It's a bit more costly than encouraging training partner, but to me, this feels like a nice partner to encouraging training partner.
Yeah, I think especially with Midoriya 4 being an option, him just being able to chuck powerful 4 on everything, having an option to, okay, I've blocked your first 2, I can't block this third one, I'll just set it to 5 and take 5.
yeah. So Midoriya 4 is going to be scary, but you don't need to worry about throws in Midoriya, since he can only give powerful to his non-throw attacks.
Oh, okay.
Non-throw, fury, or punch attacks.
Okay.
Yeah, the response on this card is going to be not overly useful, because again, I don't think there's very much stun.
There's a fair amount.
I don't think there is.
There's 3 cards at common or uncommon that stun. There's only 1 card at common that stuns.
Yeah, so again, it might come up, but you're playing this card mainly for that top thing.
Yeah, you're playing it as a panic button, but also stun hate, because stun's very powerful. Anything that forces commit, and although this stun, our character that Murray has selected also triggers it, so that also works as well.
So it was one of the other things I want to draw attention to. As much as there's a lack of stun, this ability doesn't care about characters, so you might find 1 or 2 elsewhere.
Yeah, I think this is going to see constructed play as well. I know I now owe royalties for saying it, but I know Hardiman will fight me on this because he says it's not as powerful as it is. But I think this is a really good card, and even just as a 1 or 2 of, I think this will make its way into a few constructed decks.
Yeah, I mean, panic buttons always useful, right? They're always going to come in handy, but. The big thing is having the You're So Obvious is probably like a better version, certainly on Earth. So yeah, whether it's C or not, but for limited, yes, no, I agree. Just being able to set something to 5 and say, okay, I'll take my 5. I can't block this one. I haven't had to block. It just costs you 1 resource. I'm cool with that.
So let's go to your other 2 check foundation you selected with the 5 the 2 cost 5 check. +2 block mod, ally on resigned, enhance, card pull, remove. This attack gets +3 or -2 damage, and it has a 10 guy response, which isn't going to be applicable everywhere, of course. After you block with this card, discard all of the cards played as blocks from your card pull and draw 1 card. I take it the main thing is you block with it, and then you can use the card pull card pull enhance to reduce progression and reduce damage.
So that's pretty much it. You can block with this. It may as well function like an action for the most part. I don't expect you to ever build this card. If you block with it, you get to hamper your opponent's next attack and you reduce your progressive. And sometimes playing it +1 difficulty for +3 damage, that's not the worst thing in the world. There isn't a great deal of like massive damage increase in the set.
No.
So treating this like it's a slightly worse version of, for life of me I can't remember the name of it.
Teamwork?
There's an older card, Soul Calibur card that done something similar, except it built itself face down.
Okay.
But treating it like it's a slightly worse version because it will remove. It's not the worst foundation in the world.
No.
We seen people last time playing convenient timings just to use as blocks.
Yeah. I mean, I did that, and if you are playing 10 guys, well, you get to really clear your progressive whilst keeping it at the card pool if the next deck comes, and the magical words of draw one card.
Exactly. Tengai just gets so much value out of this.
Yeah.
I know that some players that have been... Well, I know Church was saying in some of the discards that he's been playing Tengai Hold Hostage just to keep cycling Hold Hostage, and he's saying it's absolutely nuts. It's like, that sounds that way. So let's move on to your last card, which is Lust for Battle. A 1 cost 5 check plus 3 mid block modifier. Response: after this card enters your discard during the combat phase, your rival's next check gets -1. Failing that check does not end the combat phase. Yes,
so for the most part, you're either using this offensively, where you've got abilities that will destroy it in your turn, or abilities that will let you discard it in your turn to hamper their next check, or you can use it that will hamper their next check for blocking, or you can use it defensively for most of the same abilities that just freely let you destroy or discard, and you can give -check to their next attack.
Yeah, this is the back of what cards ruling, isn't it? It's because it doesn't say discard, it says discard pile. Doesn't matter if it's milled, doesn't matter if it's destroyed, doesn't matter if it's discarded from hand.
Or checked, yeah.
Or checked.
That's exactly it. Like, there's so many characters that can get this in the discard pile any way possible. Like Midoriya 4 may as well read this as your attack gets +1 speed.
Yeah.
It's I think it's going to be easy to overlook, but for the most part in sealed especially, you should be playing all the spam that you open just to keep up with the aggro pace. Just remember your spam does have abilities that could be used.
Yeah, and this is almost like a freebie, right? Yeah, sure. So when you have to build it, it doesn't do anything special on the board, but quite often, again, you're going to be discarding, or you're going to check it, or you're going to do something and get effectively a freebie out of a resource that didn't do anything previously, right? And yeah, like you say, you almost going to just look at your zeros and ones, and they're just going in your pool because they're zeros and ones.
Exactly. The more you can build in your first turn, the better, because you're not as worried about a turn 2 kill in sealed as you are in constructed. You're like, as long as I survive this turn, I can set up more defense, or I can at least hit back. You just want to be getting that build. You want to be getting the resources out early because you want to be able to survive. But no, overall, very decent picks. I love the sound reasoning behind it, and I love the extra prep of actually working and getting like all the stats and all. I just went through the comments. That's cool. You actually went into like full deep dive analysis of this: how many lows there are, this how many stuns there are.
So that's a byproduct of the video that we should, similar to what we done last time, we should have coming out hopefully tomorrow. But
yeah, so obviously, we're having this sort of chat about stuff, but if you want to go into a bit more of, I guess, deep dive with all the data, check out these guys' video when it goes up on their channel.
There's something for Jet Turbo to take into account next time we do something like this. Get some fancy graphs going of this is how many low attacks, this is how many high attacks, this is how many low blocks, this is how many high blocks are in the set, this is how many mid attacks are actually in the set. Go full deep dive into it. Shall we move on to yourself, Richard?
Sure thing.
So you went with our character from last week because you just love talking about the amazing Mr. Night Eye.
Yeah, so Night Eye. So my concern with Night Eye is that he might be a bit format warping and similar to the way Musk.
Would you like to explain to the people who have not seen Night Eye before what they do and how that would be beneficial in sealed?
So it's a 627. You've got a response once per turn after an attack is completely blocked. Seal one non-character card in your roll stage or card pool and draw a card. So that's good. A lot of the time you're going to be flinging like a V-mix attacks at each other. So there's a lot of blocking going on. So it's just free draw, free sealing. Sealing's always good, right? So then it's got enhanced your attack. Remove the top card of your deck. Discard the top 3 cards of your rival's deck. Remove all non-attacks discarded this way. Your attack gets +1 speed for every card. 5 cards your rivals removed from game pile. Obviously, we are playing with a lot smaller decks in general. Like if you're going with the minimum, your minimum is 40. Sure, we only cycle 5. It's one thing we missed out at the beginning. So while than cycling 10, we cycle 5.
Yeah.
But again, when you're playing these longer games because you're throwing these anemic attacks at each other and you're dinking and diving and what have you, just being able to say, I'm going to mill you three cards every single attack that gets thrown, he's putting a clock on you, even if no damage is being dealt. And so there's almost like you could just play like if you play like a 40 card Night Eye deck, you could play something like 30 foundations, 10 attacks, and just say, I'm going to defend and I'm going to block everything, but I'm going to mill you on everything you play me, and I'm just going to wait you out and kill you. So I think it's certainly something to be conscious of going into building your decks. And if you see Sir Night Eye the other side of you, when you go into sideboarding, you probably just want to chuck the rest of your pool into your deck, at least the stuff that isn't just completely blank.
Are you allowed to just add more cards to your deck? Is it not the same sideboarding rules where you have to take as many out as you put in?
No, I think you can change it entirely between for pre-releases, right?
Yeah, you can freely modify your deck with your sideboarding pre-release.
Okay, so yeah.
Unless there's something I'm completely missing.
No, I mean, again,
we're happy for a judge for a higher up to come into the chat or to the YouTube and just message us and be like, yeah, no, you have to take as many out as you put in, but
I don't think that's the case in Sealed. Like, you could play a completely different character at a completely different build, right?
Yeah.
To my understanding.
I understood that the rest of your pool was your sideboard, but I didn't know you could just add all. Just go, I'm playing as Night Eye. Boom! I'm now an 80 card deck.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, if you're an 80 card deck, someone should judge call you.
Okay, so I'm a 67 card deck.
Yeah.
Or 66 card deck with my character.
But even the whole mill thing aside, like, he's drawing cards and he's putting speed on face. It's just good. And like, I think he's probably one of the better characters, I think, in this Sealed format. Just again, he puts stats on. He's got this clock that he's putting on the game, and he's he doesn't necessarily have a defensibility, but he does. Well, he does. He draws cards. He seals stuff, so he's even got that bit of defense.
Being able to seal a foundation in a sealed format is very powerful because you're going to have characters taking more advantage of foundations they don't usually have access to. Drawing a card is always great, and milling in sealed is a viable format. Decks are smaller, you are cycling less, but you're also going through your cards a lot quicker. So now
turn twos aren't going to happen so much. They could still happen, but they're not. You're going to be playing these longer games where deck out becomes an actual thing.
It makes me happy that Sir Night Eye is only during your turn for seal play. But so let's move on to the attack. You've only chosen one attack from your selection, which is Point Blank Shot. It's a +3 mid block modifier, a 4 cost free check, Breaker 1, powerful 2 tech. Passive ability, whilst it's in your card pool, your attacks get +1 speed, your rival's attacks get -2 speed, and enhance. If this attack was played from anywhere other than your hand, it can only be blocked by cards that have a printed modifier of 3 or greater. So essentially this is a free high for 5, because it doesn't say other, it says your attacks.
So I think there's an argument to be made that this is the best attack in Sealed in the common uncommon pool, because it just does so much. It's got the Breaker 1. It's an off-zone attack. It's got a mid block, not a great mid block, but it's got a mid block. It's got the momentum dump. It's got that static, which is obviously really good for your attack turns. It's really good for defensive stuff. The enhance is whatever. If you can trigger it, great. And obviously there's a whole bunch of characters that you're going to have the option to trigger it.
So seven characters can freely trigger it.
Yeah.
6 characters can freely trigger it because it has to be specifically that attack, right?
Yeah.
It's not one of the ones that just checks to say if you have done it this turn.
Is if this attack was played,
So that would actually lower the number to 5. 5 of 18 characters can trigger it, which is still a decent rate.
But even if that enhance is blank and you can't do it, this card's still great. It's got high damage, it's got 5, it's an off zone, like I say, it's got the breaker, it's got the powerful, it's got the static. I think it just does a lot.
I think it's the most well-rounded attack for Sealed. I wouldn't say it's the best. Utility-wise, I think it does everything you're looking for, so it's a good card, but for me, the best is a card that when they play it, I'm like, oh, I cannot stop that card. This card, I look at it and go, I might in game 2, game 3, I might be able to play on this if this is your finisher.
That's the thing. This card fills so many roles, though. If you don't have the momentum, this is your opener because it's going to buff the rest of your attacks, or this is your defensive piece.
Yeah.
Or this card's just so versatile. I'm kind of on board with you here, Richard. I think if it's not the best common or uncommon attack in the set, it's in the top 3.
Yeah. I could go with that. I can go say it's top table, but I think it's just it's a well-rounded attack. It's good, consistent. It's good, consistent gameplay. If you've got this in your hand, if you get breaker blocked, if you have to end your attack run early, you don't mind holding this in your hand. I don't go, and the amount of characters that will be playing out of zone, out of hand play. This is going to see a lot of seal play just on that alone. If you open a Shin or a Yojo or any of the characters,
you play as many copies of this card as you get, no matter what character you play. And if that enhanced is playable, great. If it isn't, I don't care. I'm still playing it even if that enhancer is blank.
So, following the theme of playing from anywhere else, let's move on to one of the foundations you selected, which is Larceny. A 2 low block, 1 cost 5 check enhance. If this attack was played from anywhere other than your hand, it gets +1 or -1 damage. A solid pick in seal play. Yeah.
So again, this isn't an exciting card, right? But again, as you say, you've got 6 or 7 characters that are doing this thing. So quite often, this ability is either going to be good offensively. There's a good chance in most of your games either it's going to be good offensively or defensively.
Yep.
But I'd say actually this card is one of the cards that's probably not as good as you think it might be, right? But you're still playing it because it's a 1. Yeah. But also having the low block means it's a little. So this is one of the cards that is quite cuttable, and probably isn't as good as you maybe think it is. But you're probably still playing it because it's a 1.
It's a spam. It's a non-unique, and it's not once per turn, which means that if you come across a player that's been able to chain or play multiple spells like Bullet Punch, that could be played. You're playing lots of cards from outside of the zone. You're giving multiple stuff on there, and like I said, it's not unique. It's not one you can literally play multiple of them, which means you're getting 1, 2, 3, and you're not limited. One of the things we didn't go over in the seal play, you're not limited by restrictions. So if you open 5 of these, you can play 5 of these.
Yeah.
So, little bit of information, but Shin is the only character that can trigger this twice himself without any additional support. So you'd be relying on rares or anything else.
Is that not including Echo?
There's no common or uncommons with Echo.
Yeah,
so you start looking at rares upwards before you can trigger.
That's what I was, because the amount of Echo that is in the set. If you've got an Echo card and you've got Shin, or you got if you pull an X at Overhaul, you just chuck those in for the sake of it.
Yeah, Echo's going to enable most of this support that's coming up.
Yeah, that's fair. So let's go to the other one you got, which is Red Right is the coolest. Red Right's the coolest. 1 constant, nice spam. Your +3 low block, 5 check, enhance flip. This attack gets +2 damage, playable or committed. And Deadlock enhance, your attack with hardened red in the name gets +1 speed, +1 damage.
Yeah. So again with this one, so I haven't necessarily gone for exciting picks here, just sort of I guess more general principles thing more than anything else. Certainly for the foundations. So I'd say this to me is so much better than Larceny because that +2 applies to anything and has the magic words of playable or committed. So that Deadlock enhance is probably just blank. You might have some stuff that works with it. Great if you do, but it doesn't matter. But just being able to say, okay, I'll commit this resource to pass my slightly later string thing and then flip it, give it +2 damage because I know this is connecting. I think it's just like a really solid ability. And again, I think putting damage on stuff is really important just to get your opponent dead. So having this resource, it's a spam. You can play early, you can commit it happily and not care, and then at some point just flipping it for the 2 damage is going to be really good.
And I think this combos very well with facing danger that Murray selected. So if you flip that plus 2 damage and in your opponent's turn, if they stun you or make you commit, you get to unflip it and go, cool, now you got to deal with me giving plus 2 again in my next turn.
That's a nice little added bonus, but what really sells this card for me, it's not an E-commit ability. As you were saying about you need to be aggressive, I think too many players rely on stat increases that come from committing their foundations, especially in sealed. So like having something that is usable while it's committed, or it just flips as cost, that's fine.
Yeah, it just feels very free, right?
Yeah. As a turn 2 play, if you drop a throw or you drop a poke, and you can make that poke even more threatening by just going, oh, I had to commit this because I checked poorly, I'll flip it for plus 2 damage. You've now got to deal with this attack that's coming even better. But it makes a bad check better because you don't have to worry about committing it for the extra damage.
Yeah.
Moving on to more spam. We became more 0 cost 5 check plus 3 mid block. Flip, if this attack was played from anywhere other than your hand, it gets plus 2 damage.
So I'll probably cover these two as like a pair. So the other one was Foresight, which again is a 0/5, 3 low block. Response, after you play this card, look at the top card of your deck. Enhance, remove, reveal the top card of either player's deck. So these are sort of almost under the same thing, is that their text boxes are mostly blank, but you're still playing as many copies of these cards as you get. So zeros are few and far between. Like, you could end up with your seal pool having like maybe 2 zeros, maybe 3, maybe 4, like if you're lucky. Like, you're not going to get many. You're not playing constructed decks that are, 30 foundations, 15 of which are zeros, right? You're not in that world. So you're playing as many zeros as you can to get those turn 1 builds. So even though these look very blank and quite often RB, like, sometimes you are going to be playing a character where you're going to be flipping to give it plus 2 damage, and that's great. Sometimes that response on Foresight is going to help with that turn 1 build, so you could then safety build a 2 next or what have you, or confirm your checks, that sort of thing. Like the enhance remove is sort of much for muchness, but you're just going to play as many of these cards as you can because they're zeros, so you're just not going to get many of them.
You're saying the spam cards, you throw them in, the abilities, they could be blank and they'd still be great in sealed. The abilities are just gravy on top of them.
Yeah. And like, the We Became More obviously gains a whole load of value if you are doing the playing something or other, right? Just being able to, again, there's not a commit cost, it's just an E flip on a 0 for plus 2 damage. Great.
Yeah. You're going to feel like such a boss if you win the dice roll. Your turn 1 foundation, the very first one is a Foresight. You reveal top card, you know it's a 5, and then you slam in no time to waste the 4 difficulty uncommon. Because you don't want to risk something like that turn 1.
Or if you go like a 3, a 2, a 1, a Foresight, see there's a 5 on there, and you go, cool, I'll slam down this one cost foundation, and it passes.
Yeah.
There was a card back in Bebop that was kind of similar to Foresight, and it's seen a lot of play for a long time outside of sealed, so I expect to see this doing some good things as well.
Yeah, I get it. It's a 0, right? People just love the zeros. They play loads of zeros. I think in a world where you are playing loads of zeros, this loses value, right? Because you don't necessarily need to confirm your checks. But yeah, I think you're just playing as many copies of these cards you get. And yeah, so I think there's like, and you'll notice all 3 of these cards have low blocks, and we've talked about how actually underwhelming and not that useful low blocks are. So these are all cards you're just happy building as your spam, but like these are cards you're not necessarily wanting to hold for blocks, because unless you see your opponent with those big old ultra rare low attacks, they're just not going to have them.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So you said at the start, when you were making your picks, you were just looking at what is overall good in sealed rather than just.
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily. So these are picks I picked out to try and just talk about some concepts, certainly within the set and stuff like that. So it wasn't like like point blank shot, I guess, and Tonight are my power picks, if that makes sense. Like these cards, I think are very powerful, and if like I think you play as many copies of point blank shot as you got. If Tonight is in your pool, I think he's one of the best picks you can have for a character in the sealed format. So
no, it makes no sense. We'll move over to my picks. I can't wait to be ripped apart for these, but I started off with Midoriya 4. Arguably the best character going second that we have in MHA at the minute. I can't speak a standard. Especially in sealed, being an 8-hander, yeah, your deck's a bit small, but that gives you license to have a larger deck. But 5-hander, 30 health. Enhance your non-throw with Punch or Fury gains powerful 4. You may discard a card from your hand in addition to momentum to pay for this ability. As we were saying, there's not too many momentum outs in there, but there's lots of cards that benefit from being in momentum, so you are going to want to take momentum. And response: after your revival's combat phase begins, draw 3 cards and discard down to your printed hand size. So essentially, going second is a second mulligan, but it's a better mulligan because you get to keep all the cards in your hand and discard down, and it makes you a lot more defensive because you can play essentially 3 of your 5 cards, or play all 5, knowing that you're going to draw 3 cards as soon as your opponent's turn starts.
Yeah, so Midoriya 4 is a sort of funny one, right? So I think he's very, very powerful. Like being able to just chuck a load of damage on everything is very, very good. But he is keyword gated, and that's something you're going to run into with seal pools is the keyword gated characters and combos and things, right? Because you might open a Midoriya 4 like in your first pack, you think, yeah, Midoriya 4, he's broken, I'm going to play him, and then open 4 punches Furies, and you're like, womp. So you don't need to have all of your attacks in your deck meet the criteria for this. But you want a good minimum, right? Like I think I'd want to be in like at least like 50% Fury Punch to warrant running Deku 4.
That's fair, and there are quite a few punches, but I may have forgotten to not take into account the fact that the starter sets would only be XRs, so that's me being an idiot.
So those between Punch and Fury, you've got 12 options at common and uncommon. It does double up a lot in the set, so like cards will have both, but it's
so
12 is still a decent amount.
12 out of the 80 isn't too bad. You probably will see a couple, like you were saying, unless you're seeing 9 to 10 of your attacks being Punch or Fury. Midoriya is essentially just there to be draw 3 cards and drag this game out.
Yeah, and sometimes that'll be good enough. Like as long as you've got enough, like. But it's certainly a concern, I think, with those characters that are keyword gated, right? And I think you just need to bear that in mind when you're looking at your pool, in that you want to hit that sort of minimum-ish of not having your character be mostly blank for most of the game.
I'll move on to my second pick. I picked an asset because there are quite a lot of assets in here, and Mimic is a thing that we haven't really touched on, but does use assets. But I went with Takoyaki. It's a 1-cost 6 check, which 6 checks are always welcome. 2 high block. Enhance. Destroy this card. This attack gets +2 or -2 damage. Draw 1 card. And it has a Fat Gum, Ameki, and Kirishima response. Remove after this card enters your discard pile during the enhanced step. Gain 1 health. So it is character locked, but that's 3 characters, and between 6 packs you may see at least one of those 3, but it's non-committal damage increase or decrease, as well as replacement for a card that was in your stage, and it's a 6 check. To me, just feels really good.
Yeah, I think I would certainly. Like, if I open a copy of Takoyaki in my packs, I'm almost certainly playing it, because it's sort of almost a free damage buff or nerf. It's a 6 check. It's only a 1 difficulty. That response is like, if you can trigger it, great, but that's not why I'm playing the card. No. Like, it's a nice to have. It's not doesn't really concern me, and it like draws the card. I probably wouldn't play huge amount of copies of them unless I'm playing Mimic.
Yeah.
But I think Mimic's going to be really hard to play in sealed. But yeah, I'm not going to play loads of copies of it. But like, I'd certainly play 1 to 2 copies in my sealed pool or my sealed deck and be quite happy about it.
That's just it. It's a case of if I've got to choose between. If I've got, say my 6 zeros and I've got a load of 1 foundations, and I've got to choose between a spam 1 foundation that doesn't do much and a takoyaki, I'm going to go with a takoyaki. It replaces. It draws a card which is brilliant on offense and defense, and it provides stats, and stats are really important.
So I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, if I've got spam foundations that aren't doing anything for me, or even higher difficulty foundations that aren't doing anything, I might run the copies that I open. But if I can arguably make a decent 40 card deck not playing this, I wouldn't run it.
Oh,
unless
really?
Yeah, no, it's. I know I was speaking earlier about that foundation. For the life of me, can't remember. Resigned being an action card from hand. This is an action card that I need to set up in advance, which puts me off a little bit. And you need to be one of the specific characters to get the bonus for.
I get that, but for me, it's the onboard threat as well. Having the action in your hand is great, but if my opponent looks and goes, I need to be able to kill you +2 every turn.
Well, it's not every turn though. They just, as soon as it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just thinking the play pattern of you've got this in play, and then your opponent plays an attack, and it's okay, I'll give it -2 damage. I can ignore this one. I've drawn an extra card during your turn, so an extra block, and I'm now going to be able to block your second one. Feels pretty decent for that 6 check. It's not a card that's overly exciting, but I think it's definitely playable.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. I think it's playable, but as you were saying, it's kind of aggression wins games in sealed, and another foundation that I'm going to be able to use to help pass a check, I value more than 2 damage.
No, so that's fair. I'll move on to the first attack I selected. This was more just it's a heavy hitter that needs an answer. Deadly Fire, 6 cost, 3 check, +1 low block. A 4 mid for 7 range tech. Response: if this card is played from anywhere other than your hand, draw 1 card. Oh, so if this card after you play this card, if a card has been played from anywhere other than your hand, sorry. So that's great because it means that if you played anything other than your hand, if this attack speed is 7 or more, your rival loses 3 health. This is not gated around the words cannot reduce your opponent below 1, so killing through burn is always a decent option in this card. And with access to every foundation, I don't know how much speed buff there is out there. I know Night Eye can speed buff, I know there's other characters that provide speed buffs, but 3 speed does not seem impossible in sealed. Maybe just quickly looking at the data.
See, to me, I don't know how excited I am to play this card if I'm not Shin. If I'm Shin mode, I'm playing every single copy of this card as I can, and saying you need to call mid every turn, and I'm just going to play my other ones, right?
Yeah.
If I'm Night Eye, then I think there's a good chance of getting that 3 speed, but I don't know how much actual speed pump that I'm willing to just do to get that burn 3 on this. It's a 6 difficulty rate. Especially if I'm not getting that drawing a card out of it, I don't know how excited I am to play this card.
It's a defensive option as well because that response doesn't care if it's your turn or your opponent's. So if your opponent's played a card from a different zone, you get to draw a card as well.
But it's a low block, right? And we know there's not many low attacks.
True.
So it being a big old 6 difficulty and a low old 4 speed, unless I consistently be happy to get that 7 with my foundations, my character and stuff, I don't think I want to play this card.
So I'm falling into the same boat as you, Richard. I love this card for Shin, mostly because he's 1 or 2 characters that can reasonably get it to 7 by himself.
Yeah.
It's how much are you willing to commit. So we don't have many 6 checks in the set. We have the asset and we have whatever excess characters we have.
Yeah.
So it's reasonable to assume that when you play this, you need to commit 1 foundation. That's just the tax that's going to come with this card 90% of the time.
Yeah, so 1 tax minimum.
Yep. And then how many additional cards are you going to tax yourself on top of that for 3 damage? Because if you've had to commit, say, 4 cards, 4 might be excessive. Say you've had to commit 2 or 3 cards, make this 7 speed plus. Your opponent sees that and goes, oh, they've had to commit, like, say, 3 or 4 cards in their staging area. I don't mind committing out equal amount to try and block this now. And at that point, all you've done is 3 damage.
It is a 7 damage which does need answering.
Sure, but can you imagine playing this your first move and like checking a 3 on it, right?
Yeah,
like it's just going to feel miserable.
I mean, it's only 1 more foundation than a 5. I'm not saying that I'm going to run 4 copies of this, but I think this is a decent.
But it's like you play that, you check the 3. Okay, I'll commit 3 more. I'll commit my 3. Yeah. Can I then afford to commit more to give it the speed, and therefore maybe I get that stuff in, get the damage in, and get that damage on my opponent, but then I'm just committing everything in this 1 attack. If that isn't killing my opponent, they're just going to rock me on the swing. If you haven't got the ways of getting the speed up, then this is just so blockable for a 6 diff.
Kenshin seems to agree. You're potentially spending a lot just to get 10 damage in. I selected this because I think it's just a good sealed card. I don't think it's going to see much play outside of it, but I don't even know if it's good for sealed. I think it's good for Shin, and I don't know. It's an attack that needs answering, which it's guaranteed. Unless my opponent's got a buddy block or a 1 mid, it's guaranteed to force resources out of them as well.
You need speed on it though, man. 4 speed mid isn't guaranteed to do anything.
No.
It's
I say, if I'm playing Night Eye, I'm probably playing this because I've got a good chance of putting the speed on face, right?
I don't know.
If I'm playing Shin, I'm playing this.
Like I said, I just went through the list and went, "This is cool. This is cool." I'm not saying I'm not trying to have a go at you. No. I'm just saying, and it's good to talk about these things, even if we come to the conclusion that you shouldn't play this, right? Do you know how much speed buff there is in the set, Murray?
Can't give you an exact number, but there's nothing that really gives +3 speed. You can flip a foundation to give it EX2.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things that will give it 1 speed here or 2 speed. I believe those.
Yeah. So unless you're Night Eye or Sakaki, then you're not really getting close to the numbers you need.
So you could play this in Sakaki because you can probably give it the +2, right? Yeah. And you just need 1 speed from somewhere, so that's fine. And making it effectively a 6 mid 7, that's chunky enough. If you're playing Shin, you're playing this card. So it's got this big dumb face on it. If you're playing Night Eye, I'd probably consider playing this card. You're not going to get the top thing off, but you can probably get the 3 speed.
For Night Eye, you need 15 cards removed from your opponent's game to get the speed, so it's quite a bit of an ask. At that point, if 15 cards removed, you're probably decking them out.
And by that point, they're probably up to 10 foundations, which means they're probably able to easily block it. But like I said, honestly, that was the last card I picked. I was just like, I just need to pick something cool. The main attack that I instantly slammed in there was Locked Up.
Mm-hmm.
So 5 cost, 3 check, 4 mid 4, +2 high block, punch, slam, stun 1, lock, stun 1. Enhance, if this attack deals damage, freeze 1 foundation committed by this attack's stun ability. Freeze, very good. Enhance, discard momentum. This attack gets +1 speed for each committed rival foundation. If you can put some damage on this, this can get unblockable.
So this, I think, almost the opposite of Deadly Fire, right? It's not the 6 diff. It solved its own problem with speed, so you can make it unblockable. And damage, I think, is a lot easier to come by, especially given the cards you looked at, to pump it, to make it relevant. If you're just making this a 9 speed 4, your opponent's going to be like, whatever. If you can make this into a 9 speed 6 or 9 speed 8 or whatever, imagine, playing this in Midoriya, right?
Exactly. 'Cause it's a punch.
I'll discard a momentum, give it 5 speed. I'll then discard a card from my hand from a power of 4. It's now a 9 speed 8 catch.
Exactly.
9 8 catch.
And when we're going through Murray's card, I was saying there's not too many momentum outs. So if you're sat there taking momentum, your opponent could be sat there going, "Oh yeah, there's with the deck when your deck is going cool," or you're sat there building up and you just go, "Yeah, locked up, stun 1." If you're on lock, you go cool, stun another one, and then you go cool. This is now a 6-4, 6 or 6-6 or 6-8. Damage is a lot easier to come by, but I like locked up. I played a couple of games of locked up, of lock against ace maneuvers, and the speed. Yeah, the amount of speed you can get in constructed is insane, and speed kills. So
obviously it's one of the few cards, as we mentioned earlier, that actually has stun, a common or uncommon. It's not like a card that I'm like slamming necessarily every copy of, but I think this is a very solid card that you should consider.
It's a card you either have to completely block or accept that you're not getting access to one of your foundations next turn.
So for the most part, with the freeze mechanic and stun 1, because it's specifically tied, it's not like if it connects you get to choose one of my committed foundations. I think that would make me care about blocking it more if you don't have the damage to back it up. Because you're committing like my worst foundation.
Yeah, it's like cool. My face down is frozen.
Yeah. But if you're dropping this turn 2, and your opponent's only got 3 foundations, that can have a big impact early game. Freeze is a lot more important early game than it is late game.
If you're dropping this turn 2 and your opponent only has 3 foundations, your opponent's got other issues with this game.
That's fair.
Like being down 1 foundation. If they've only got 3 foundations, arguably your opponent needs to take a second build turn anyway, and having a frozen foundation during that build turn won't matter as much.
No.
Yeah. But turn 2, you're not going to have the momentum to give it this thing. It's only a 4 mid at that point. It's like it's probably quite blockable.
No.
So I think it's a solid card. But
I think it's
1.3 million. It ain't.
It's not. It's definitely 1.3 million. But if I drop this turn 2, turn 3, and if I'm on lock as well, it becomes a bigger threat. I just think it's a really cool card that I would happily be playing in sealed.
Yeah, I think it's much better in certain characters. It's going to be like Deku makes this an all-star.
Yeah, lock is a cinch because it's also got the response and it's not a range. So if it does do damage, that's 2 frozen foundations, which can be huge.
I think my opinion of this card's definitely skewed because there's an older ultra equivalent of it that I'll show you guys later.
Yeah.
That's amazing, like absolutely game breaking.
Okay.
So I'll move on to Heroic Assistance, which is, I think we skimmed over it when we were doing our previous stuff. But 2 cost, 5 check, 2 high block. Flip, after one or more of your foundations is committed due to a rival effect, ready 2 foundations that have not been ready as combat step. Deadlock, flip one of your rivals. Look at your rival's hand. You may change the zone of this attack. So you're probably not getting too much out of it, but it's a deadlock threat, which is always nice to have. And if you do come across one of the limited stun cards or committal characters, you essentially it replaces itself +1.
Yeah. So actually, I think the deadlock is going to be more relevant in sealed than actually the response. And that deadlock's actually very good. It may seem innocuous just looking and then changing the zone, but being able to look, oh no, you're not holding a low block, I'll make this big old attack low. It's just good.
It turns you into Sarah 1 for a fight.
And again, you need to consider in sealed, you're going to be throwing anemic shit at each other. There's a good chance you're going to go into those long deadlock games, right? So having deadlock threats, I think, just a general concept is going to be important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. The response shouldn't do much in sealed unless your opponents manage to get all the lock support. But that deadlock ability could make an impact in the game if it goes long.
So Heroic Assistance wouldn't help with lock because lock specifically says they can't be readied until the start of their next turn.
It will work on these 2 attacks though that both have stun.
They both have stun, but if locked ups freezes one, but if locks freezes the other, then that one cannot be readied.
Yeah, but as soon as they get stunned, they'll.
Oh yes, yeah. As soon as
it before the damage or the freeze gets applied.
I guess it will work on one because it's stun one, then lock stun one, so it's two separate.
Yeah, it'll work on one, and you'll get that foundation back.
I get what you mean from that side of it. And then moving on to my last one is one I made a big fuss up about the last time when we go for it. Is Confession. I really like Confession because as you're saying, people are running a lot of weird cards. People are running a lot of off zones. 1 cost, so nice spam. 5 check plus 2 mid block. Once per turn, your attack. Your rival discards 1 card and draws 1 card. If the card they discarded was not an attack, they lose 1 health. This cannot reduce them below 1. Deadlock Enhance. Flip. Name a card your rival cannot block with this attack with the named card. So you're probably not getting much out of the Deadlock Enhance unless your specific characters or have managed to pull a heroic assistance and a confession, but that first enhance is pretty decent. It's not unique. It works on. You can do 1 confession, then play your next attack, do a second confession, and it can really mess up what your opponent's holding.
So to me, this is almost the opposite of heroic assistance, right? The deadlock not going to be very good because obviously we're playing limited decks. You have no idea what your opponent's got in their hand, but just being able to say you need to discard an attack or burn 1, and especially people want their attacks to go out your next turn. I think again it's solid spam, and it's just almost like a free button. You can just keep pushing and say discard an attack or burn 1, discard an attack or burn 1.
That's it. If I no matter how many of these I pull, I'm chucking them all into my pre-release deck because
this card's going to look so good as an XR, isn't it? Because it's that kind of full art.
So TCG player has got the XRs, and you can now see which ones are full art and which ones aren't, but it hasn't got the foil patterning. But if this is a full art XR, I think the foil patterning is going to go around the expansion, which is just going to look amazing.
Yeah, this card looks great on. I'll need to see how it actually plays out in paper, especially if you end up with 3 or 4 copies of it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people might be scared to let their opponent discard a card and draw a card, especially on their attack. Like when it's your attack turn, saying here you can find a better block. But it just pumps 1 damage on each attack that you play for each copy of this that you have out.
But it's 1 unblockable damage.
That's it. It's just getting through. You're going to eventually chip people down.
That's just it. Especially if they pick a 20 healther or if they're playing quite defensively. It's like, cool, we may be on a 20 turn clock, but I'm winning that 20 turn clock.
Yeah, this is definitely a card, like you say, that I really like this card. I think it's gonna look sick as an XR, but in order to really understand how good this card is you have to need to play with it and see what it does, because giving looting is a very powerful effect, so giving that to your opponent isn't necessarily a good thing, even if because quite often, like if you had a foundation in play that said lose a life, I'd probably play that card.
I would be hitting that like I was a rat getting treats at a lab. Like, pay 1 life, loot a card? Yeah, give me that all day. So my opponent giving it to me is a bit... That's what puts me off it slightly, but
I do get that, and I have played this on TTS, and it's a lot better against aggressive players who overcommit. One of them go down to 1 or 2 cards, and then you're running that dice. But in sealed, block zones are going to be all over the place. If you're playing off block attacks, if you're running highs and lows, going cool, you've got 2 cards in hand, you're going to have to discard 1 and draw another 1 and hope my next attack is that attack zone, if because you're going to hold the best attack in hand. And especially if you point blank shot, you're going to hold that and you're going to discard something else. So it does make looting is good, but looting on your terms is good. Being forced to loot can be a bit of an issue, especially in sealed when your deck's a lot smaller and you're being. And especially because it's once per turn you attack, you don't have to do it on your first attack. You can force them down to one card in hand and go, get rid of that card. Draw another one, hope you got it.
That's a question for you, Brett. Like, how many attacks how many cards does your opponent need to have in hand before you decide that it's not worth triggering Confession?
If they've got 3 cards in hand, I'm not doing it.
Okay.
Because 3 cards in hand means that I am just. It's the Monty Hall problem. If I do that, they're holding at least 2 cards. I'm not doing that straight away. I'm doing it when we get in deeper, when I'm getting to the cards that they're wanting to hold on to anyway. So if we get to 2 cards, I may consider it, but it's one of those things that, like you're saying, I also want to be sat across from my opponent. I want to be looking at their body language. I want to look at the way they're holding the cards. I want to be looking at making the judgment call of how badly do I think you want to hold those cards. If I've launched my first attack, they had 3 cards in hand, they blocked. I launched my second attack, they let it through. When I play my third attack, my first in hand says, get rid of one of those cards. If you didn't block my second attack, it's either because you didn't have the right, you're holding all one zone, or because you want to hold on to those cards till next turn. And although, like you say, looting is really good, getting rid of a foundation to pick up a new zone. But if I can get an attack out of your hand in sealed, that's really good. Because some people will only be running 14 attacks. If I can get one of those in your hand,
but you're never going to. Like, if your opponent doesn't want to discard the attack, they're just going to pay 1 life and not care, right?
But they have to discard at least 1 card. If they're holding 2 attacks in hand, I'm forcing them to discard one of those cards.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to play this card, and I'm going to see what it does. I have a horrible suspicion that this card is actually going to turn out to not be very good. I want it to be good, but I have this horrible suspicion that it's just going to be actually unplayable.
I get that, but I'm one of those players that aggressively plays petty squabbles and other things like that. So I'll be sat there and I'll go, cool. We'll both discard 2, draw 2. I'm one of those players that go,
but petty squabble, you didn't care about what it did to your opponent. You cared about what it did for you.
Yeah.
But this for me, it's a case of it's highly contextual, and it's one of those cards that I need to, when I'm playing TTS, I need to be listening to my opponent's voice. I need to be looking at how they're playing the game. It's similar to when I brought up about Saikaki. This card is good and good or bad depending on how you use it. So it comes down to the skill and how well you can read your opponent.
Yeah, I get that. Hopefully it works out. I'll definitely be giving it a go if I open any.
Yeah.
If I've got 4 down, if I've got 4 cards in hand, I'm doing it every time. just because the fact that I've got 4 down means, I'll burn you for 4. You can get rid of 4 cards in your deck. At this point, I'm just going for the mill.
Yeah, you just let them sculpt at that point, though.
Yeah, at that point, you just let them sculpt. I'm disappointed that it's
good, but I don't think it will be. That's my problem.
I don't think it's groundbreaking. Like I said, I picked my picks based on. I looked at these and I thought these cards are going to be cool in sealed. They might not win you games, but they're cards that you'll play and your opponent will go, I need to watch out for these cards in game 2 for the attacks, or I need to play around what these cards are, because if I'm against Midoriya, Confession is going to be pretty much a dead card.
Yeah.
But if I'm playing against the 5-hander, my opponent goes, okay, I need to hold at least 2 cards. If I can't kill you this turn, I need to hold 2 cards, because Confession means that I'm getting rid of my last card and I'm drawing something completely random. Might be better, might be worse, but it takes an aspect of control away from your opponent.
Yeah, I think it's going to be mixed. Again, I'm going to play it. But, so that was our picks anyway. So just to sort of have, I guess, a bit of a discussion about the sealed format and the cards in general, and just I think there is just looking at the card pool in total. I think I don't know how you feel about it, Murray, but like it feels like they put a bit more focus on limited cards rather than just like set one where basically every card's played.
Just to address Kenshin, because I've just seen if you pull 4. Realistically, you're only going to pull 1 or 2, and Confession's a decent spam foundation, and yeah, if I pull 4, that's just amazing, and I'm going to be memeing up from that. But ideally, if I was playing it competitive at pre-release, I'd be playing 1 or 2, and I'd only be using them later into my string, forcing more pressure on my opponent's blocks. But sorry to interrupt, Richard.
Okay. So yeah, I don't know what to say. Oh yeah, so like set 1, like basically every card's played and constructed, right? And then I think there's a lot more limited play in design in terms of the cards and stuff.
So I kind of felt that when I was like going through and looking at some stats and stuff. For the most part, a lot of things are viable. There's some characters that feel a little bit left by the wayside, especially with their support and what they're trying to do.
Like Mimic.
I wasn't going to say Mimic. I was going to say Nedry and for the life of me I can't remember the name of Squid Boy.
Tamaki.
Yeah.
When you look at the grand total or the grand picture of the set, and you're starting to think about like beyond sealed, when you start considering draft and the implications of having the DLC characters mixed in and having what might have been some quirk pack characters or quirk pack cards find their way into the main set, there's a great symbol imbalance. There's a lot more evil in this set than we've not had any sort of imbalance like this for years.
Yeah.
It's not going to affect sealed as much. I do think there's a little bit of a knock-on effect that there's definitely more supported keywords like slam, fury, punch. There's a little bit of tech. There's one guy that cares about weapons, and then the rest is a free-for-all.
Yeah.
But I think the real like big difference that you'll notice is when it gets to draft. I feel like up to a point, maybe up to the late stage of design, they had this great limited format in mind, and then just flooded it with these additional DLC characters and the additional promos.
I don't think that was we don't know what happened to Jasco. I think, like you're saying, they designed the set around let's make Sealed play great. Let's get new players in through Sealed. Because the last few sets aren't great for Sealed play. They've built this set around Sealed with the character design, and then the community started complaining about the unfairness of box toppers, and stores started complaining about DLC not selling and them being stuck with boxes because they had to order a certain amount. Yeah. So Jasco accommodated us, and they put it all in the set, and then that has caused.
I think that's a great decision overall.
But for the balance of the set, it's kind of gone.
Yeah.
Whoop.
Oh yeah, like I'm not going to complain about if I need to have like a little bit more of a questionable draft environment and not have to spend 40 quid on 2 DLC boxes. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I could rant for hours about the DLC product, but I'll save that for.
And for the amount of people that still complain that Jasco don't listen to us or they don't care, it's shown that the way they've handled set 5 shows they are listening. They're just not able to respond instantly.
Oh yeah.
Starter decks now 2 of each. People have been asking for that, and it's a brilliant decision. And with the loss of the URs, they're even cheaper. The sealed aspect to the decks, and I think when we get set 6 to Turbo Blast or Turbo Burn, I think that's going to be a great move forward as well.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think like overall, hopefully everyone has fun at their pre-releases. They should be really good.
We'll bring it up to an end. We'll bring it up to an end here. Thanks for joining us again, Mary.
It was always a pleasure, guys.
Have we got any final comments here, Murray, before we go? Any sort of final tips for anyone going to their pre-releases?
The most important thing is have fun, right? Pre-releases are meant to be a learning experience. They're very casual events. If you see a new player, especially at a sealed event, struggling with their deck construction, give them a hand. Don't forget that you can always play any card face down as a 2/5 foundation with a +3 mid block. I think we forgot to mention that earlier.
I didn't know if that had been brought over in the rules because it wasn't in the pre-release rules for set 4.
Was it not? Oh. Okay, maybe that's not allowed anymore. I'll need to double check that.
But
yeah, I'm funny feeling that isn't in the My Hero one, but yeah.
I've got a feeling it was a thing in set 4, so it should still be.
Always treat new players nicely. We want them to enjoy their events. We want them to come back. We get that there's prizes on the line, but it's not a Nationals invite. It's not ridiculous promos. So don't go into a pre-release event with the same mentality you would an RLE. Give your opponents time to think. It might be some players' first times looking at these cards. So
it's just a chance to have fun, play with the new cards, fling some cards about, have a laugh. Pre-release is always a good onboarding event for like new players and stuff. So, it's always a good opportunity to get new players playing the game. It's just have fun with it, and as usual, don't be a dick.
Pre-release is the best example of sometimes it's better to make the cool play than the competitive play because you get to find out what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly it.
So we'll wrap up. Thanks for joining us again, Murray. I'm not playing in pre-release, unfortunately. Timing messed up for me. So best of luck to Richard and Murray in theirs. And next week we're going to be doing the UKVersus tier list, where we're going to go for each set and we're going to tier all the characters. And I'm going to get shouted at Richard for constantly trying to put Dabby into the S tier.
Yeah, and almost certainly everything you put on there will be wrong. So it's
I think we'll go through it next week, but I think we just need to have a special like Richard tier and Brett tier for our pet decks, because Shin. We're having words about Shin, and you're wanting to get him really high up.
No, I mean, Shin won't be the one I want to put high up. It'll be All For One.
You're not going to have any arguments for me for All For One being in its own class whatsoever. I've been an All For One simp since like day one. He is the epitome of anime villains. I absolutely love him as an anime villain outright. But that's for a separate anime podcast, not for the CCG podcast.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for joining us today, and thank you, Murray, for joining us, and we'll probably have you back on in the future.
Yeah, we'll see you soon then, guys.
Yeah, we'll speak to you later. Take care, everyone.
Bye.